Hello, hi. So very happy good afternoon to everyone. So thank you so much for joining my sessions today. So this is Krishnaveni and we have been talking about the story of life on earth, and that's biology. Yes, Vishalo, very happy good afternoon to you. So you had lunch? So come on guys, so you'll quickly like, share and subscribe. You'll send the link with your, you'll share the link with your friends. Come on, make it quick. Yes, so we are talking about a very easy chapter. It is typically like a story. Yes, so ecology has nothing that you have to pay attention to. It's a complex mechanism, nothing like that. It's a chapter that you can just sit back and relax. So please do tell your friends to join as well. Okay, for all those who are new, once again, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I teach for class 12, and Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I teach for class 11. So it's great being with you. Yes, so yes, so we'll continue with our chapter. So we were talking about ecology. Yes, so this is lecture 2 of ecology. So we started off with your organism and population. Yes, so we'll take off from there. So we spoke about a lot of interesting things, right? I told you, I gave you a very good introduction to ecology. So why ecology is interesting. So what makes it interesting and why it is the need of the hour, right? So based on that, we'll talk forward. Yes, of course, I have an announcement to make. Yes, we have a mentee running very shortly. So today's mentee, it is at 6:30 p.m. Alright, so we'll be talking about two chapters in the mentee, cell, the unit of life, and cell cycle and cell division. So it is a chapter that I started off with, so way back 2-3 months, okay. So I want to make sure that you still remember this chapter. So I have a mentee from this chapter, but it's though there are two chapters, it's not a very long mentee. We'll just play for same half an hour. So 15 questions, 20 seconds each. Alright, so make sure you join me for today's mentee. So mentee is at 6:30. And you will bring a lot of your friends to play the mentee, because cell, the unit of life, cell cycle and cell division, you cannot say you have not read. So you should have done n number of revisions, so that these two are the chapters that people start off basically with, right? So make sure you bring in a lot of participants. So today we'll play mentee. So once again, 15 questions, 20 seconds each. All right, ready? Yes, shall we go forward with ecology? So what did you remember about last class on ecology? So what were we talking in last class? Yes, I know ecology has 4 chapters and each chapter has 2% weightage. So the total number of weightage for that chapter is 8%. All that is fine. And we start off with the first chapter, that is organism and population. So come on, can you quickly define what is ecology for me? Yes, I gave you the definition of ecology in the last class. So can you define ecology for me? Come on, yes, Priyanka, hello, so good afternoon. So thank you so much for joining my session today. So that is a great pleasure. Yes, come on, quick. Quick, can you define ecology for me so that we can go forward with the first chapter? Yes, that is organisms and population. It is organisms and populations, because we're talking about a wide variety of organism and a wide variety of population. Alright, so how do you define ecology? So ecology is the interaction between different living organisms and also the interaction between the organism and the environment. So you define that as ecology. So ecology involves both your biotic and your abiotic factors, because we also interact with our environment. It's not that we live in isolation. So you say, can you just live inside your house for long without coming outside? Of course, you need sunlight. So even in your house, why do you build your house with windows? Because you always interact with your abiotic factors as well. You interact with your environment as well. Yes, Harini, so very happy good afternoon. So thank you so much for joining my session. So please do like, share and subscribe. So hope you had lunch. Alright, so that is the reason why we are talking about ecology. So going forward, so we were here talking about organism and population. So we introduced the chapter. Yes. And we started talking about the organism and its environment. We were just here, okay, so we just started talking. So we spoke about the major abiotic factors. Today we'll complete major abiotic factors and we'll talk about the response of these factors, how we respond to these abiotic factors, then we have adaptations, and then we'll enter into population. So this chapter of organism and population is broadly divided into two major categories. So category 1, when we talk about organism and its population, first we'll talk about organism, okay. The second part is where we'll talk about your population. So it is a chapter, like if you have the habit of reading, right? So if you like reading a lot, so you can read this chapter in one go. It is like a story, a very beautifully penned down story, so that you can do. But if you want someone to teach you, if you want someone to teach you line by line, even then this chapter is very interesting because each and every line makes a lot of sense, which you wouldn't have connected, but as such it makes a lot of sense. So we'll try to finish the major abiotic factors today and we'll see how we respond to these abiotic factors. Alright, so in the last class, so what did we talk about? Organism and population. So what did we talk about? Organism and environment. What was most important thing that we spoke about? So how did we start off with? So why did we talk about organism? So we are talking about the physiological ecology, right? So we are talking about how the organism is designed to take over a particular adaptation, right? So that is what we are talking about. So that is called as physiological observation. So I gave you the example of a bulbul. So why does a bulbul sing? Why does it sing and how does it sing are two different questions. So how does it sing? So we have to look into the mechanism as to how its larynx and pharynx works. But why does it do? So it is a means of communicating with the mate. Okay, so it is a means by which the bird interacts with the environment. Alright, so I gave you so many examples as to why the night bloom flowers are white, and how does the honeybee know this flower has more nectar, how does a chicken identify its mother. So there are so many things in nature which are really fascinating and amazingly diverse. Yes, so we started off from there. So and we ended up asking what are the key elements that lead to much variation in your physical and your chemical conditions of different habitats. Because for example, we started off with your biome, right? So we have biomes. So your desert is a biome, your oceans are a biome. So we have different biomes. So everything is different. So we spoke about the 5 different things. So what are they? Desert regions, ice cap regions, temperate, tropical, etc. So and the oceans, right? So we spoke about all these biomes. Now why should you have such variation? So why should you have a desert? So we know, yes, desert is a condition where the water is less, yes, and at the same time, you know, rainforest is a place which is always damp and moist. So why should you have such variations? Why can't everywhere be the same? Why do you have variations? Why do you have North India, South India? Why do you call these group of peoples North Indians? Why do you call these group of peoples? Why should there be diversity? So you have so many diversity in so many things, but similarly, with respect to the biome also, why do you have so much of variation? Yes, Praveen, a very, very good afternoon. So you're new to this class. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. So how did you find my class? How did you find my class? So you found it in YouTube when you were Googling something, when you were trying to find something. Is that so? Yes? Alright, so anyway, thank you so much. So I teach the entire biology for class 11 and 12. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I teach for class 12, and Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I teach for class 11. So it's great having you here. So if you have any doubts, so please stop me then and there so that I can get your doubts clarified. So before that, please do subscribe the session so you will know when I have a class, so you will know my schedule. All right, so please do that. So today I have my mentee at 6:30. So if you subscribe this channel, you'll get a link. So please do join for my mentee. So mentee is a short quiz. So we play for 15 questions, 20 seconds each. All right, and mentee is from the chapter Cell, the Unit of Life, and Cell Cycle and Cell Division. All right, so please do join me, Praveen. So Praveen, where are you from? Okay, so you are preparing for NEET. Are you in class 12, class 11? Huh? Okay, so that is what we are talking about. So what are the key elements that lead to much variation in your physical and chemical conditions of different habitats? So what gives rise to these habitats? So point number 1 is your temperature, water, light and soil. So these are your abiotic factors. So what are abiotic factors? So abiotic, that is non-living. So there are non-living factors which plays an essential role in determining the variations present in different habitats, namely temperature, water, light and soil. So all these 4 factors are very, very important. So we are going to see how they are going to affect the variation. So remember, the physiochemical components alone don't characterize the habitat of an organism entirely, okay? Even the biotic components play a role. Okay, so you came across my channel, okay, so that is great, so that's really nice. So please do watch all my videos. So I have been teaching for the last 3 months in YouTube, same time. So please do find me every day. So every day 3 p.m. we are having a class. So please do watch my previous video. So we have completed quite a few chapters. So if at all you find any difficulty, so please do ask me. You can ask your doubts here. All right. Yes, Satyendra Kumar Singh. Hello. Hi. So how are you? Yes, good afternoon. So thank you so much for joining my session. So please do kindly like, share and subscribe. All right. Okay, so it is not only the abiotic components that play a very important role in determining the variations, even your biotic factors play a very important role. So biotic factors like your pathogens, parasites, predators, competitors of the organism in which they interact constantly, so they also determine the variation of a particular organism. Alright, so both your biotic and your abiotic components have a major role which leads to the variation in your different habitats. Alright. So over a period of time, so organisms had through natural selection evolved to adaptations, optimize its survival and reproduction in its habitat. Yes, so we are also evolving, even your coronavirus is evolving along with us. So the natural selection makes you adapt to the situation so that you survive better. Yes. So now your pandemic taught us how to survive, right? At the worst of times, yes, now we are all adapted, right? So now even we do not know what is going back to normalcy. We do not know how school was like a year before, because we are now so used to this modern world. We are so used to this technology, but we really have hardly any idea of how school was. So if I ask you, give me your school experience or describe me your school experience, what you will say? Ma'am, those days. So when you say those days, what will I say then? Yes, it's been like a long while ago, right? But now we are slowly trying to adapt to the new normalcy, the new environment, new technology, new conditions, etc. So similarly, over time, the organisms also went through natural selections. So according to the survival of the fittest, so what can survive better? So they have their own adaptations. They have optimized their survival and reproduction rate accordingly. Alright, so here I want you to understand, because in last class we concluded that there are different biomes and different biomes enhances a different type of habitat. So now we are talking about how there is variation in the habitat. If the earth is the same, so the earth rotates in the same direction. For example, one half gets night and one half gets day. So why there are so many variations between the day and night? So for example, now it's morning in a lot of places, right? So now it is daylight in a lot of places, but still all these places are not the same. So we have different habitats happening, different types of environmental conditions affecting us. So why is there a variation? So that is the question that I'm trying to address. So for that I told you, yes, it is because of your abiotic as well as your biotic factors. All right? Yes? Okay. So each organism has an invariably defined range of conditions that can tolerate diversity in resources it utilizes and distinct functional role in your ecological system, and that is called as a niche. So do you remember? So we defined niche in the last class. So what is a niche? So once again, each organism has an invariably defined range of conditions that can tolerate diversity in its resources it utilizes and the distinct functional role in the ecological system, and that is known as a niche. So what is your niche? So niche is a place where you're very comfortable, where you get all your resources that you need, where you are at the maximum of the efficiency. For example, your house is your niche. Even though you go to your friend's house, even though you go to your cousin's house, so nothing is as sweet as home sweet home, right? Yes, always your home is home. Everything else is a place apart from home. Even though you try to be comfortable, even though you have been there many times, but always your house is what you are comfortable at. So that is the niche where you know everything. Yes, it is your house. You can do anything. You can sleep, you can eat, you can dance, anything. You have your clothes there, you have your room set there. So that is your comfort zone. So that is your niche, right? So similarly, cells, organisms also have a niche. For example, if you ask me what is a niche of polar bear, of course it is the polar regions, right? So they can survive well there. They show this best survival in those regions. So that is called as a niche. All right. So once again, so you should remember the term niche. So each organism has an invariably defined range of conditions that can tolerate diversity in resources it utilizes and the distinct functional role in ecological system that is called as a niche. Alright, so niche can also be in terms of your cell. For example, you can tell this is a niche of differentiated cell and this is a niche of stem cell. So when I say it is a niche of stem cell, which means that region is rich in the transcription factors of your stem cell, rich in the nutrients that enhance the production of your stem cell. So that is called as a niche. Alright. Yes, Vishal, hello. Fine. So going forward, today we'll discuss the 4 major abiotic factors and how they are going to affect your variation. Alright. So first one is your temperature, followed by water, then light, and then soil. So we'll talk about each of them in detail. Okay. So here I guess soil is missing. So we have 4 factors. Okay. Yes, I don't know who did that. So before the class there was 1 dislike and now there was 8 likes and now suddenly someone disliked it and took off the like. I don't know who is it, but it's okay, alright. As long as even 4 student listens to my class and who understands something, I'm happy. So this does not bother me. That's fine. It's a part and parcel of the outside world, but as long as I have 2-3 kids who are very studious in listening to what I'm saying, and if you're traveling with me in your forward journey, I'm happy. So that's enough. So this should not bother us. So going forward, so let's talk about temperature. Yes, of course, temperature affects you and me. If it's very hot, yes, we say it's very hot. So we take a lot of things that is very cold. So you like to eat ice cream. You like to have cold water. Yes, you like to live in a room where it is air conditioned, etc. At the same time, if it's winter, then we like to have coffee, we like to have tea, we wear sweaters. Yes, temperature also affects us. Similarly, so we are one part of the entire community. Okay, but how on a broad base temperature is going to affect? So in the last class, if you remember, we started off with your biomacromolecules. So biomacromolecules makes up your cells, cells make up your tissue, tissue makes up organs, organ makes up organ system, and a group of organ system makes an individual, and a group of individual makes up a population, and a group of population makes a community, and a group of community makes a biome, right? So it is in that order. The most important ecologically relevant environmental factor is your temperature. Okay. So the average temperature on land varies seasonally. Okay, it decreases progressively from the equator to the poles, from plains to the mountain tops. So this is one normal fact that you should know. So average temperature on land varies seasonally. It is not the same, right? So throughout the year, the temperature is not constant. It is not fixed. So we have variations in our temperature. For example, we have summer, winter, we have rainy season. So there is a lot of variation, right? So the average temperature on land varies seasonally. It decreases progressively from the equator to the poles. So when you travel from the equator towards the poles, the temperature again decreases, and from the plains to the mountain tops, once again it decreases. Okay, so this is a general criteria. So however, unique habitats like your thermal springs and your deep sea hydrothermal vents also have an average temperature that exceeds 100 degree. So here we say this temperature varies, okay, it decreases progressively. But you also have habitats where the temperature increases beyond 100 degree and life exists in both the cases. So that is the beauty of the living kingdom. For example, it is pretty sure, right? So mango tree cannot grow in country like your Canada and Germany. So mango tree, so India has the largest variety of mangoes. Yes, so mango is a origin of Indian crop, right? So we have so many mango trees, so many varieties, right? So it cannot grow in a country like Canada and Germany because it will not adapt to the temperature. So Canada and Germany have a very cold temperature and that is not suitable for your mango plant. Alright. So there are so many examples. So this is how your temperature is affecting your diversity. Alright. So why different habitats are present is because of this region. Because we are adapted to living in that temperature. So for example, snow leopards. So snow leopards cannot be found in a Kerala forest. They have to be found in a mountainous area that is filled with snow. That is their adaptation. They can survive well there. For example, now you are interested in preparing for NEET. okay? But if I force you to prepare for JEE and make you read maths, yes, you will do it, but at the end you will not be satisfied. Some people can never do it, right? So because you're adapted, because your interest matters, so here that is their adaptation. That is how their body is designed. So they can only survive in those kind of habitats, all right? Another one is your tuna fish. So it is rarely caught beyond your tropical altitudes in the ocean. So it also has a specific limit up to which it will swim and stay in that particular water. It will not cross that latitude beyond that. Fine. So significance of temperature can be easily understood and realized when we understand how it affects the kinetics of enzymes. So all of us know, so I think you should have some idea about biomolecules. So when we're talking about biomolecules, we'll talk about enzymes. So enzymes are nothing but proteins, okay, so that have catalytic ability. So these enzymes, they have an optimum temperature and pH only at which they are very, very efficient. For example, say, let's say, take a simple enzyme that is hexokinase. So hexokinase is involved in your glycolysis pathway. In the first step, when glucose is getting converted into glucose 6-phosphate, so you need an enzyme hexokinase. So it is an enzyme. So your glycolysis happens in your normal cell condition, but if there is any deviation from the pH and the temperature in which the enzyme is normally functioning, then the enzyme will become unstable. Then the enzyme will degrade. So it is very important that the temperature directly affects the kinetic of enzymes present inside your body. So that is why a polar bear cannot survive here, because it affects the kinetic of the enzyme. So that particular enzyme is active only at that temperature. So if you do not provide the optimal temperature, then the bodily functions will not be proper. So with the case of husky. So husky is not a dog of Indian origin. It is a dog of the Alaskan origin. So a husky is supposed to live in that temperature. But slowly they are adapting as well, but this is the major problem that is lying behind it, okay? So the metabolic activity and other physiological functions of the organisms are also affected. So if the kinetics of the enzyme is affected, it will in turn affect the metabolic activity and other physiological functions of the organism. All right? Yes? So few organisms can tolerate and thrive in a wide range of temperature. So those group of organisms are called as eurythermal organisms. So there are few groups of organisms who can tolerate and thrive in a wide range of temperature. So this is only temperature. So thermal here refers to temperature. So that is called as eurythermal organisms. So can you give me some example of organisms who can survive in a wide variety of temperature? Yes. Which can survive in a wide variety of temperature? So any example that you can give me? Organisms which can survive, which can tolerate and thrive in a wide variety of conditions? Yes, any idea? Humans. Man is one big example. Dog, cat, tiger, all they are examples. If you see, in India only there are places which are very, very cold. For example, take for example Kota. So Kota is pretty cold compared to other places in India. So here also you do not have any specialized stray dogs, okay? You just have the normal stray dog which you find in other places. But still they try to tolerate the cold here, right? So even other places in Rajasthan are very, very cold, like your Sillard, Pilani, they are very, very cold, but still the dogs do not have any special adaptations. They're the normal dog with a normal fur thickness, just like you see in Chennai or somewhere else, okay? Chennai or Bangalore, the same type of dog you see here, but still they're able to tolerate and thrive. So they are called as eurythermal. So example is your man, dog, cat, tiger, etc. So vast majority of organisms are restricted to a narrow range of temperature. So they are called as stenothermal. So steno is, they are very, very narrow. They are restricted to a narrow range of temperature. So stenothermal. Now can you give me an example of stenothermal organism that only can survive in that specific temperature? If you bring them out of that temperature, they will die. They don't know how to tolerate. It's not their mistake, it is how their body is designed. So example will be your penguin. Your penguin cannot survive everywhere. Then your crocodile. So examples are important here along with the terms. So term number 1 is eurythermal. So example of eurythermal is your man, dog, cat, tiger. They can survive a wide variety of temperature. So a vast majority are restricted to the narrow range of temperature. So they are called as stenothermal. Example is your penguin and crocodile. Alright, is this much clear? So the levels of thermal tolerance of different species determine to a large extent the geographical determination. So when they can survive a wide variety of temperature, yes, they are spread out throughout, right? So they are spread throughout the longitudinal and the latitudinal axis of the earth. Whereas if they are restricted, they are only found in those particular places. So this tells their diversity. So the next factor is your water. So the first one was your temperature. So we are done with your temperature. The next one is your water. So how water is going to affect your variations. So point number 1, of course, water is indispensable. Yes, we cannot live without water. So another most important factor influencing the life of an organism is water. So life on earth originated in water and life is unsustainable without water. So can you think of a day without water? If you do not drink water, what is going to happen? Your body is going to get dehydrated. Once your body is dehydrated, then your kidney cannot function properly. Yes. So you have a lot of problems, right? So water, if you do not drink, you have so many problems. If you do not have water here, so how will you wash your hands? So there are a lot of things for which we depend on water. You will not be able to cook as well, right? So life on earth originated in water. It is unsustainable without water. Life is unsustainable without water. But its availability is so limited in deserts. So thus desert plants have special adaptations, okay? So the productivity and distribution of plants is heavily dependent on water. Whether a particular cropland is productive and it is widely distributed depends upon the availability of water, alright. So the productivity and distribution of a plant across the globe depends upon the availability of water. So that is the next point that I want you to remember. But what about the organisms that are living in oceans, lakes and rivers? They do not have any water problem? For example, we are land living creatures, right? So we are terrestrial beings, so we have water problem always because we depend on water for a lot of things. But how about your fishes which are always living in your oceans, lakes and rivers? So do they have water problem? So for example, if you ask us, so if you ask human beings, if you ask terrestrial beings, do you have land problem? Of course we have. We are just trying to fight over each other for a small plot of land, right? Yes, we are terrestrial beings. It does not mean that we have enough of land that we're not fighting. So similarly, even if your fishes are there in water, it's not that they do not have water problems. Yes, they have their own demands and needs. So what are they? So for aquatic organisms, the quality of water matters. So what is the chemical composition of water and what is the pH? That is very, very important in case of your aquatic organisms. So the salt concentration is another important point because that determines the pH. It measures a salinity, okay. So salinity is measured in parts per thousand. So we call it as PPT. Okay, it is less than 5 in inland water. So 30 to 35% in your sea water, greater than 100% in your hypersaline lagoons, where you especially have only your, what is this? Alright, where you only have your saline conditions, alright. So once again, even aquatic organisms, though they live and survive in water, they also have water problems in terms of the quality of water, which determines the chemical composition and pH of the water. Yes, the next one is your salt concentration. So salt, the amount of salinity is measured in terms of parts per thousand. Okay, it is less than 5 in case of inland water, so 30 to 35% in sea, 100 ppt in some hypersaline lagoons. Fine, but still life thrives in all these. So some organisms are tolerant to wide variety of salinity, so that is called as euryhaline. So remember, EURY means they are exposed to a wide variety of temperature, etc., etc. So haline means saline here, thermal means temperature. So euryhaline means organisms which can survive in a wide variety of saline conditions. Alright, so eurythermal means organisms which can tolerate a wide range of temperature. Is this much clear? Yes. So others are restricted to a narrow range of saline conditions and they are called as stenohaline. So euryhaline, stenohaline, so eurythermal and stenothermal. So do you remember the examples of eurythermal? Yes, it is your man, cat, dog, goat, etc. And in case of stenothermal, it was your penguin and crocodile. So here in terms of salinity, when it is exposed to a wide range of salinity, it is a euryhaline, and the other one which is restricted is your stenohaline. Now you should remember the examples of these two as well. So they are basically your fishes, okay. So your green crab is euryhaline. Fine. And then you have a particular type of fish called as molly. So that is also euryhaline. Okay. Then talking about which is stenohaline. So stenohaline is a marine fish that is called as haddock. So a narrow range means it can only live in the marine waters. So marine waters has a saline condition of 30 to 35 ppm. So marine fish haddock is an example. Sometimes marine fish cannot thrive in any other condition. It cannot survive in hypersaline lagoons. Yes, so that is the reason. So you should remember euryhaline and stenohaline. Alright, so going forward. So many freshwater animals cannot live long in seawater. So this is what I was trying to say. A freshwater animal which lives in your lakes and ponds cannot survive in seawater because the vice versa also. An organism living in a marine condition cannot survive in a freshwater because of the difference in the osmotic balance. Okay, so that leads to an osmotic problem between the body and the external environment. That is very, very important. So the next factor, the third factor is light. So photosynthesis, so plants prepare their own food with the help of photosynthesis, and for photosynthesis to happen, sunlight is the essential source of energy. So there is no doubt till this. So many species of plants, be it herbs or shrubs growing in forests, they are adapted to photosynthesize optimally under very low light conditions. Now see, initially in the start of the lockdown, so listening to online classes was a headache for all of us, right? So initially when I started teaching, even I was not very acquainted to online teaching, right? But over time now you are used and even I am used, so we are both common people so who meet on an online platform. So even the trees or plants which are overshadowed by tall trees or canopied by tall trees, they have adapted to perform photosynthesis under a very low light condition. Even when the sunlight that they are receiving is very less, they can photosynthesize efficiently. You have the molly fish. Oh, that's really nice. So your molly fish is an example of what? So it can survive in salt condition. Yes, it is euryhaline, right? So it can survive in a wide range of salt condition. Okay. So what color is your molly fish? Praveen, what color is your molly fish? So you have an aquarium at home. So that is nice. So how many varieties you have? How many varieties you have in your aquarium? So please let us know. Okay. So many plants depend on sunlight for the photo period as well. So photo period is important for the flowering. So the molly fish is black in color. Okay, so that's nice. Great. Okay. So now you know one extra information about your molly fish, and I think you will never forget the example of euryhaline, right? That is your molly fish. Okay. So this is for plants. Okay. So plants, light is mandatory, sunlight is the most indispensable thing, etc., etc. So you have two types. What are the types? One is your molly. Okay. The other one is. Okay. So for animals also light is equally important because you have diurnal and seasonal variations in the light intensity as well as the duration, which plays a major impact on the time in foraging. Okay. Reproductive and migrative activities. So what do I mean? So light is also equally important for animals because you have nocturnal creatures and you have diurnal creatures. So nocturnal creatures are active at night and diurnal are those that are active during the daytime. Okay. So So animals also depend on the variations in the light intensity for their timings and foraging. So foraging means the search for food, okay, for the reproductive activities. So when do they reproduce, and migratory activities. For example, certain animals will work only during the day and during the night they will not work. So that is very important. So light is equally important to animals as well. So availability of light of land is closely linked with temperature. Do you agree? So when I say a plant is getting enough sunlight, which means I am talking about temperature in other terms. So it is very closely linked with your temperature as well. So you have a black and a white. Okay, so both are molly fish. So both are molly fish. So what type of fish it is? So how did you actually find out that you should have a molly fish? Yes, any idea? And also you do not say, so when do you say fish and fishes? Have I told you? When you have more than two varieties, when you have more than one variety, you call fishes. But when you have two clownfish, you say fish. You do not say fishes, alright? Okay, so you have a black and a white fish. Alright, Praveen, so thank you so much for sharing it with us. So deep, so it's not DEP, okay, so it's deep. Oh, it is called as balloon molly, alright, okay. So deep, so greater than 500 meter in the ocean, the environment is pretty dark. So how do they know there's something called a sunlight? So how do the plants between their deep down there prepare their food actually? Yes, so that is also one point that you have to think about. Even they are dependent on sunlight. So the spectral quality of solar radiation is also important. So the radiation that we are receiving is very important. So that's why they say don't travel in the mid-afternoon when the sunlight is maximum, because then you have your UV radiations which are harmful, right? So the spectral quality of the radiation is equally important. So the UV component of the spectrum is harmful to many organisms including us, because it can cause skin cancer, it can cause damage in your single base DNAs. Alright, literally it can cause what is called as point mutations. If you remember, we read about point mutations in your genetics. Yes. So not all the color components of the visible spectra are available for the marine plants living at different depths of the ocean. Yes, of course, the organisms that are living deep down the ocean also observe some portion of the light, but they are not available, so they do not they do not receive all the spectra of visible light. Okay, so there are some restrictions. So this is about how light affects your variation. So we are done with talking about how your temperature, water, light affects your variation. So the last point is your soil. So we'll talk about soil now. So soil. So nature and properties of soils in different places vary. Yes, that's why we have different crops in different places in India, and for that matter in any place. So it is dependent on climate. So the soil condition depends on the climate, the weathering process, whether the soil is transported or sedimentary, and how the soil development occurred. So how long it takes for the soil to develop, and what is the climate, so what is the particle size, etc. So various characteristics of the soil. For example, the nature and property of soil depends on major factors like your climate, weathering process, whether soil is transported or sedimentary, and how the soil has formed over years. Now talking about the characteristic of soil, that also plays an essential role. So soil composition, grain size, aggregation determines the percolation and the water holding capacity of soil. So the characteristic of the soil also will in turn determine whether the soil is transported or rudimentary, so whether the soil is well fertile, whether the soil is well efficient. So all the characteristics of the soil also determines that. So soil composition, soil grain, aggregation determines percolation and water holding capacity of soil. So this is very important, right? Yes, which means your soil is fertile, which means you can harvest more crops and you can produce more yield. So other parameters like your pH, mineral composition and your topography determine to a large extent in the vegetation in any area. For example, apart from soil, you also have other parameters as well which determine the productivity of a particular plant, that is pH, mineral composition, topography. So topography is the surface. So before you plant a sapling, you first look at the topography, whether the surface is even, hard, rough, tough, etc. that determines the extent of vegetation in any area. Alright. So aquatic environment also has sediment characteristics often determine the type of benthic animals that survive there. So when you talk about benthic animals, benthic means the animals that live deep down the ocean, deep down the water, deep down the sea. That is called as benthic animals. Okay. So even they deep down the ocean also you have layers of sediment. Yes. So that also determines which type of habitat will survive where. Okay, so these are the 4 abiotic factors that I want to discuss with you. So once again, temperature, water, light and soil. Fine, with this we are done with discussing the 4 abiotic factors and how they affect our ecology. Fine. Now, what are our responses to these abiotic factors? So how do the organisms living in such habitats cope up or manage with a stressful condition? Now we spoke about your saline conditions, that is uri, halide, steno, halide, etc. But how do the organism manage to survive with such stressful conditions? So what is happening? So how are they getting adapted? Why highly variable external environment should bother the organism after all? So why should it bother you if it rains outside? Why should it bother you if it snows outside? So as long as you are living under a roof, so why are you bothered? If you do not have a roof to live under, yes, then it bothers you. But as long as you are living under a roof, why should it bother the organism after all? So over millions of years, many species evolved have relatively constant internal environment that permits all biochemical reactions and physiological functions with maximal efficiency. So over years, we are adapted to live in such a way, even if it rains outside, even if it's snowing outside, we still can have the normal cellular metabolism happening in our body. So over time, our chemical reactions have adapted themselves so that they can survive irrespective of the external conditions. So it enhances the overall fitness of the species. So you are not bothered about the external environment as long as your internal functions are normal. So this enhances the fitness of the species. So consistency in terms of optimal temperature and osmotic concentration of body fluids. So this is what I am talking about, the internal environment. Okay. So my body is able to maintain a normal temperature. Yes, even if the temperature outside is 13, even the temperature outside is 0 degree, I am still living, I am still digesting the food that I am eating, right? Yes, and the osmotic concentration of body fluids, if there is an imbalance in the osmotic concentration of body fluids, then my hemoglobin will not be able to carry enough oxygen, alright? So organisms maintain internal consistency despite varying external consistency. So what is our body temperature? 37, right? So irrespective of whether the temperature outside is 50 degree or 0 degree, my body tries to maintain its own temperature, right? So organisms tend to maintain internal consistency despite varying external consistency. So this is a very, very important point to be noted. Fine. So how are we going to respond to this? So we regulate, we confirm, we migrate and we suspend. Okay, so these are the ways by which we are going to respond to the abiotic factor. So along with the graph and these 4 points, I will explain it to you in the next class. Fine. So regulate, conform, migrate, suspend, RCMS. So this is how you respond to your abiotic factors. Okay, regulate, confirm, migrate and suspend. Done? Is it clear? So with this, I'll stop today. Yes, the chapter is to be continued. So if you genuinely liked my session, if you understood something out of nothing, and if you think it's worth watching, so please do like, share and subscribe, and do join for my mentee at 6:30 p.m. Yes, it is for 2 chapters and just 15 questions each. So make sure you join. Alright, so thank you so much for joining my session today, and you have been a wonderful audience. So it's great. So please prepare for your mentee, and I'll meet you right back at 6:30 p.m. sharp. Alright, so guys, take care and bye-bye.